Hello, everybody. I'm Micah Hayworth. I say that, but I know a lot of you guys. I've met you guys a lot. Andrew and I are good friends. I've been going to this group for like 2 years now, and so definitely I think a lot of the connections I've made, and so reason I kind of call it power of partnerships, is exactly what Anthony said of connecting with other people, other investors. It really helps fill that missing link. Why not do a deal just because you don't have all of the knowledge yourself? Might as well find someone to fill the gap. All right, let's get into it. So first, who am I? My name is Micah Hayworth. I'm 26. I'm married. Got 2 cats and a dog. I got a big family, getting bigger now that we're all getting married and stuff like that. Christian, and I actually started majoring in film production. So I was one of those people that fell for the liberal arts education, and I had to figure my way out of it, and I ended up using real estate to do so. And then after that, I also worked in live events a little bit. What I'm hoping to talk about is, tools I use to scale. 7 months ago, I had nothing, and I was able to get up to 85 units. Partial ownership, I don't own 100% of that, and I can talk about that later. But I think there's really a lot of good lessons that I've learned, and I'm continuing to educate myself. Again, I only see myself as like a step ahead. I'm not an I don't consider myself an expert. I can just tell you guys what I've learned along the way. And also, I like to talk about the opportunities available today, and I think that it's available today given the ability to partner with other people, connect with other people, be able to fill that missing link and scale and educate yourself, and also learning from those partners. That's a lot of things people don't think about. It's not only finding complementary skill sets, but then now you have the opportunity to learn from those people you're doing deals with while you're doing deals. And then, again, my core belief is that successful individuals are not inherently different from the rest of us. They're not special. They just simply took consistent action towards specific goals. And the reason some scale fast, some scale slow, is that they're trying to do it by themselves, and they're going it alone. So my journey, I had success model for me at a young age. My grandfather actually invested in real estate. He has about 40 rental properties right now, single-family houses. But I saw that from a young age, but I didn't actually internalize that it's something I could do. I thought, you know what, that's something rich people can do. I can't do it myself. I need to get money at that point. And so I actually was a little stupid, and I went the whole W-2 route, which is fine. But I achieved that dream, and I worked in live events. I worked as a full-time lighting tech doing concerts. I did a lot of work at the Armory, traveled around the country, and during COVID, I ended up losing my job because I worked at a live events company. Live events went away because of COVID, and then that is what really got me onto real estate, and that's how I started my journey. So first property, single-family house. I bought it when I was at the end of 2020, early 2021. We ended up buying it for $232, renovating it for $45,000, which very, very slow price, mainly because I had to do all the work myself. Ended up doing a lot of the bathroom work, got a new kitchen in there, new backsplash. We actually took 2 bedrooms, combined them into a master bathroom suite, and also added a bedroom in the basement. And that's me getting really dirty, doing all that work in there. But I think doing this is what really broke that first barrier for me, because it's the idea of going from, I'm going to do my first deal to having done it. And it's this prep work that set me up to be able to do the multifamily properties I did later on. And so from that, I actually sold that. I was able to pay off all of my student loans using the money from the flip. And then I bought a second house, which the confidence I built up with my wife, paying off her student loans with real estate, I convinced her to move into a crack house. Try that one on for size. So we bought a crack house for $130,000. It is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 650 square foot house that we ended up renovating. So we painted the outside. That's the inside. That's a nice little hardwood floor there that we had to LVP over. There was not a surface in the house we didn't touch. We had to skim coat all the walls. We had to do those ceilings. That's the basement. This is the HVAC machine we had to replace. That if you get a zoom on that filter, it's pretty much all black. So you got to replace your filter once every 10 years. I think that's what the seller went towards. And so we turned it into, I added 2 bedrooms in the basement, and a bathroom in the basement, and a laundry room. And so we were able to sell that. There's the kitchen there. And so we were able to sell that for, we refinanced it for $240, and that allowed me to pull about 90 grand out of that, and that's when I really started looking into multifamily. So at the middle of doing this, I was like, okay, I'm not a big house flipper guy. I know a lot of people do great in house flipping. That wasn't really for me, and so I really wanted to go the multifamily route. And so March of 2022, I started underwriting multifamily properties. I actually bought a little course teaching me how to underwrite commercial properties and stuff like that, and it took me an entire year to find my first 12 unit. So this is where it starts going into the partnership side of things, where the first 2 deals I did all by myself. I was like, I'm going to bootstrap it. Through the blood, sweat, tears, and credit cards, I'm going to renovate these houses and get her done. And doing this next deal, I actually had to partner with 3 different people. The first of which is those 2 people over there. Those are my parents. I found a 12-unit apartment complex, which was 3 minutes away from their house. I was underwriting a bunch of properties. I found this one. It's in Iowa, where I grew up, and I had money from the house flip that I was able to roll into the down payment, but I didn't have enough. So, okay, well, how do I get extra $50,000? My parents were looking to buy another rental property at that time. They have one house that they were renting out in Iowa City, and over the course of 5 or 6 years, they had saved up a little bit more money to put it down to down payment. And the same avenue, I had showed this property to them, just talking with them as I would, and offered that, hey, well, why don't we, they had offered that, hey, why don't we buy this together? So it was me, them, and we did the down payment together. And then we were also I partnered with a friend of mine from high school, and he is a general contractor. And so he has spent the last several years since we graduated building a general contracting business. And so he ended up actually partnering with Sweat Equity. And so he gives us a discount on the labor, and he renovates the place for us. So a little breakdown on that. 12 units, $665, which is about $55,000 a unit. This is the middle of Iowa in a small town, 45 minutes straight west of Des Moines. I was able to negotiate a seller carryback of $50,000. And then that gave us a down payment of $83K, which was 12% of the purchase price. Renovated it. We're in the process of renovating it because we bought it in March for $160,000. And then we have a line of credit on it that helps us with the renovations. And estimate it should be worth about $880 in 5 years. Should be worth about $850 in 3 years when we finish renovating everything, which after we cash it out should be about 17% cash on cash. Also, throughout the whole process, I'm going to start getting into the actual property. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to shout it out and stop me at any point in time. So this is kind of what it looked like originally. I have a bunch of little photos there at the side of we had to dig through several years, decades of DIY handyman projects. So this property was 2 blocks away from my high school. So I was very familiar with it when I saw it. This actually came up on the MLS. So I didn't do an off market for this. I found it on Zillow. Every so often I was looking at multifamily, typically on Crexi or LoopNet, and then I jumped over to Zillow once, and I saw this place, and we ended up buying it. But I immediately recognized it, and the one thing that we knew is that it was a drug property. It had a reputation of some seedy tenants. And so the day that we bought it, it had 3 vacancies. And when we went to collect first month's rent, we actually had 2 tenants vacate themselves because I had hired a professional property management company to manage it for me because it's in Iowa, so I'm not close by. And they had to, they kind of came in, they pounded their chest, introduced themselves to all the tenants, and the tenants got the idea that they weren't going to be able to get away with the same stuff they were able to get away with, and so they ended up vacating themselves. So it's been a fun process of having 5 vacancies in a 12-unit apartment building right off the bat. But we've been able to basically break even up to this point where now we only have 1 vacancy, and we've been able to renovate half the units. This is what they look like. We got new LVP, new countertops, new cabinets. We also repainted the place, all new trim, all new doors, make it look really nice for our tenants, and able to raise rent about $150.
What do they rent for?
$850. So they currently rent for $850. They used to rent for anywhere from $650 to $700. So it's about So there's 11 two-bedroom units, and there's one studio unit in the basement. It's basically a closet. So that the studio gets $650. All the two bedrooms get $850 once they're renovated. We actually had a tenant there. This is a funny story. That used to own the property, and I only know this because my dad has a church in town, and the mailman goes to his church and told me this little small town gossip. Basically, the previous owner, not the guy I bought it from, the guy before him, inherited the property from his parents and ran it into the ground, which is why it got drug infested. A year before I bought it, some other guy bought it and thought that he was going to buy it and it was going to print him money and didn't put any money into it. Hired a property management company. The property management company quit because he refused to put any money into the property. And so then we bought it. We planned on putting the money into the renovations. We got the line of credit. I hired the general contractor who's my partner on the project. And that's how we were able to get all the renovations and stuff like that done. So it was definitely it was kind of a fun situation. But that guy still lives there, the previous owner. And he used to pay $550 a month in rent for a two-bedroom apartment that's 750 square feet. And so we were like, hey, man, and he had no lease. So we're like, hey, man, we're going to just ask you to, walk out, leave, and we gave him like 60 days or something like that. And he was like, oh, well, I'll stay, I'll pay more. I'm like, okay, like how much? And I asked my property manager, like, well, how much should we charge him? And he's like, well, let's try $850. Because the guy was like, he had lived there for like 20 years and he was seated in the place. We're like, well, would you feel about paying $850? He's like, done. So we didn't renovate that unit, but we still got market rent for it. So that was pretty good. But I think this is what really broke the barrier in my mind of like, hey man, commercial real estate seemed really, really scary to me. But I broke it down into the parts of it and assembled, the team to do the deal. Where it really, as soon as I did it, I was like, okay, can't believe it was like as easy as it was, So then 2 months later, I bought an 11 unit. Now this project, actually, I had a friend of mine, after I closed the first deal, his name's Kurt Pauley, he's a commercial broker in town. He had reached out to me because I raised capital, and I'd be able to put the deal, and I was been talking to people how I wanted to syndicate apartment buildings. And he's like, well, he had just found this deal off market, and he had a capital partner who they went under contract on the property together, and then the capital partner backed out last minute. And he was like a week away from due diligence ending. It's like, hey man, could you raise some money to help me buy this property? He's like, sure shooting I can. And so I ended up raising half the down payment for it, or half the capital raise for it, and then he was able to put in the other half, and we did the deal together. And so this is a situation where, I wouldn't call myself the expert on this. I simply just kind of raised some money for someone that I knew. I've known Kurt for over a year and a half now. And so it's like, hey, I knew he owns about 65 units in town. And so I found someone who's smarter than me. He owns his own property management company to manage it for him. And so I raised some money from him, and I was able to be a part of a deal. And so I own a whopping 6.5% of that property. But I think it's great. It's something I don't have to put a lot of work into, but I was able to get her done. So we bought it for $1.2 million. We got down payment of $250,000, and we're renovating it. We're only putting very little into the property. So this one, we bought it for 1.2. It should be worth about 2.1. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of things in the property that the previous seller wasn't taking advantage of. So for those of you who don't know, commercial real estate is valued off of the money it makes. So this property, it's located in St. Anthony Park, so pretty close to downtown Minneapolis, and it has underground heated parking for all of the tenants, and they weren't charging a cent for them. They're giving them for free, which if anyone lives near downtown Minneapolis, I'm like, that's $100. There's a garage door. You can see it on the bottom right-hand corner. They could literally drive in. It's heated parking attached to the building. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. But they don't charge a cent for it. And so it's like, okay, well, we could charge $100 a space for that. That's market. Some people charge $200, so we're being nice. Also, they were paying all of the utilities. So, okay, well, you could charge RUBS, which is a utility reimbursement program, which is about $75 a unit, just to pay for their heating and whatnot, which is normal people typically do. And then on top of that, they were renting out. There was 3 one bedrooms, and the rest were all 2 bedrooms. And they were renting out 950 square foot 2 bedroom units in St. Anthony Park for $1,000, which market rent in that neighborhood is about $1,400. So I was like, okay, well, there's, and there wasn't much updating that needed to be done. We were thinking about, replacing the vanity and maybe some cabinets. But other than that, the entire place was perfect. So in the first month of owning this, we took 2 vacant units and didn't do anything to them and re-rented them for $1,375 the next, that month. So definitely, it's been working out really well. In year 4 or 5, whenever we decide to refinance, we'll be able to return all of our investors' money. So we syndicated this, so that means we raised the capital for it. We have passive investors who don't do anything, and they just gave us some money for the down payment, and then we send them distributions, and then whenever we sell the building, they'll get a big payout. And so then that led into the last building. So right around when I was looking at buying the 11 unit, I have a friend of mine who approached me about buying a hotel. This friend of mine I actually met at MinRec. So there's a little plug there. I met him a year and a half ago when I attended one of the meetings. And and him and his wife approached me like, hey man, we found this property. They had met me at MinRec once, and then it was in March, they saw me attend another event, which reminded me of them because I continued to attend networking events years and years into it. And they said, hey man, I found this hotel. Would you be interested in raising capital for a hotel? I know you raised capital. You did the 12 unit. You're looking at doing this 11 unit. You've been talking about how you want to syndicate. Could you help us syndicate the hotel? And at first I'm like, oh, no, man. Like I'm an apartment guy. This is a hotel. It's commercial. It's a business because it's short term. Like I don't know about any of this. But I'm gonna look at the numbers and see. So my partner Tom and Stephanie, soon to be partner, now partner. They had both done normal W-2s their entire life. They're both in their 50s and 60s. And they had invested in syndications 5 or 6 years ago and ended up doubling their entire retirement account by investing passively in syndications, which is like, hey, we love syndications, which is why they wanted to do a syndication as well. And they actually used that money to buy about $3 million worth of mobile home parks. And then they ran out of money, so now they have no cash except for they had enough for the earnest money, but that was about it. And he had also had a property management company to manage those mobile home parks and a commercial brokerage they owned. And he used to work at Marcus & Millichap, which is where he found the deal. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna look at this. And so I look at the deal. It is in Baxter, Minnesota, Brainerd. It has an average of 3-star reviews. It's 62 units. The current owners live in the property, and they live in the property with their parents, and they do all the cleanings and do everything themselves, which normally is fine except for the fact that they let their standards slip. Which the epitome of it is that when we had gotten it under contract, we did some mystery shopping, and so then we just visited the property without telling the seller and just rented a room and see how it was. My partner walks into his room, supposedly clean room, and the previous guest had forgotten to flush. And the cleaning staff, aka the owner's parents, didn't notice it. So if that tells you how detail-oriented their cleaning was, it's not. So essentially, they ran this property into the ground. And we were given something called a STAR report, which is essentially a market report for hotels, and which tells you how the performance of the current property and the performance of similar properties in the area, which is awesome. And so we look at it, we look at our comps, essentially, 5 properties in the area that have similar amenities to our property, and they had 61% occupancy, which in hotels, 100% occupancy is the number of rooms divided by 365 days, because it's hospitality, you're turning every bed, so full occupied is every bed every night. And so market was 61%. This property was operating at 48% occupancy, 13% deficit, which each percent counts. Trust me, it counts. You're turning beds. If someone that owns Airbnbs, you really know if occupancy is key. It's a game of nickels sometimes. But despite all of this, the property still profited 400 grand last year after they paid themselves salaries. So I'm like, okay. So if these owners who leave poops in toilets can, get 400 grand of profit after salaries, I think we could do the same, if not better. So I did the numbers and I looked at, if we matched last year's revenue, didn't do any better than they did, didn't change the occupancy at all, and increased the expenses by like 100 grand to hire staff and stuff like that, what would it be? Well, for our investors, it would be 11.5% cash on cash return. So I was like, okay. I turned to Tom the next day. I'm like, yes, I will definitely do this deal. 11.5% cash on cash sounds great to me. And the same week that we agreed to work together, I met our fourth partner, Mike. So Mike, his name is Mike Colosimo, and he has 25 years of experience managing hotels. So I was like, oh, okay. So I thought we were, going to be able to do well originally, and then, being able to work together with someone who has a management experience, there's no way we can fail. So we bought the property for $3.5 million. It's in Brainerd, Minnesota, 62 units. We syndicated it. So we raised $1.2 million to buy the asset. $700,000 down payment. We have about $660,000 of renovations we're going to do. Now, we talked about the numbers. If we were just to increase the occupancy by 3% in the first year, don't touch anything else, we would be getting an 18% cash on cash return just by raising it by 3%. And keep in mind, it's at a 13% deficit.
Question. Who did you syndicate to? Is that your friends?
Who did I send? Oh, to raise money for it?
I mean, if I had that deal, I can imagine who to go to.
Honestly, so this is where the partnership came into effect, where all of us sent out the deal to our entire personal network. So we can get a little bit into syndications themselves. Who knows what a syndication is? Okay, actually, this is a very, very educated group here. For those of you who don't know, syndication is it's a fancy way of saying you have passive investors. So if you JV a deal together, you guys all have an LLC, you own together, you buy a property, every partner needs to be active. And as soon as you have passive partners, you start getting into the SEC rules, so the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so, which is where the branch of the government that manages stocks. And so essentially what we do is we take our LLC, we register it with the government saying that we have passive investors who own passive shares in the company, similar to a stock in Amazon or something like that. So they have LP shares or limited partner shares. We have general partnership shares. So we can own a small portion of the company, but still maintain managing control. And so our partners, the 1.2 million, came from about 11 different people who invested money into the property, and they have LP shares where they're just passive, and we send them monthly updates, and they have a percentage of ownership, and whatever percentage of ownership they bought, they get the passive. They have that percentage of cash flow they get from the property, and we send out cash flow on a quarterly basis. I thought I saw a hand. So we raised that. Here's the property here.
Michael, what were the lots that were raised for?
Say again?
Was it $50,000 increments?
Yeah, so the minimum is $50K to invest in a syndication. A lot of syndications have a $50,000 limit. A lot of it has to do with if you raise money from non-accredited investors, you are limited to having 36 or 35 investors in the deal. And that's a government rule, so you can of non-accredited. You can have as many as you want of accredited investors, and the difference between the two is accredited is people who either have a net worth of $1 million or more, not including their personal residence, or they've made $250,000 a year for the last 2 years and expect to make that next year. Individually. So if you're married, I think it's 300,000 household or something like that. So again, there's a lot of regulations for it. I have an attorney that handles everything for me. I don't dare try to file that myself. And so yeah, it's capped at that. And we had done what is called a 506B syndication. So a 506B syndication, I call it B for buddy. So it's a friends and family sort of thing of you have to have a pre-existing personal relationship with everyone who invests passively in the deal. And so I would have to have met you at MinRec or something like that. We would have to have exchanged have 1 or 2 meetings so we know each other for a substantive period of time. And then you would have to be what is called sophisticated, which means you're not an idiot and you know how to tell whether or not an investment is a good deal or bad deal. That law is mainly to prevent you from stealing money from grandma who doesn't know what they're investing in. So with that, the 506B allows us to have non-accredited investors who are sophisticated. And you can have up to 35, and then we can have accredited on top of that. And yes, so it's American. So we pay, last year the seller paid $175,000 in franchise fee, which is about 11% of gross income. So it's a chunk. Now, the benefit of that is that we're a Wyndham property. So we take advantage of being a franchise of Wyndham. So we get all their systems and processes with us, as well as having advertising, as well as someone being able to drive down the road and be like, oh, American, I know American. And then we'll be able to kind of benefit from all that. So right now, we bought this property. So we closed on it August 30th. So we've had it for like 6 weeks now. So new into this, but it's been doing all right. We've had a lot of fun. Some of your friends of mine I've chatted with a little bit about the first week of owning the property. It was a Labor Day weekend. So Saturday we were booked 100%, super fun. That's awesome. And then we had 8 guests complain of finding bed bugs. Oh crap. Okay. Just bought this property, 5 days ago. Now we got bed bugs. And I look at all the rooms that complained of having bed bugs, and it's scattered across the entire property. Okay. And so we have to shut the property down for 4 days and have the entire place sprayed to get rid of all the bed bugs, which was $12,000 right out of our pocket the very first week, which, thank the Lord, we have reserves. That's part of the whole plan. But that was definitely really fun, where the day after, as our cleaning staff was going through and cleaning rooms, they saw the bed bugs and they got really grossed out, and they said, well, we're not going to come back until all the bed bugs are gone. Okay, cool. So me and my partners, we all drove up to the property. They had already stripped half the rooms, and our pest control guy was like, well, you need to get rid of all these linens. You have to do the laundry because the washing machine heat will kill them. And so we're sitting there at midnight, drinking beer and doing laundry in a property with no guests, no staff, in the middle of the night. I'm like, sweet, they call this passive income. No. But I don't know, it's honestly been really, really fun. We were still able to.
Question, does Wyndham have any national contracts with different contractors? So like being part of the franchise for like if you need an exterminator or like negotiated rates in a corporate?
No, not that we were able to find out. They have, so we're doing renovations to the property, and I'll hold back some stuff because we got this cool event coming up next week that I want you all to come to, talking about the hotel.
Not to get bed bugs because
we sprayed the. All right, guys. Every single room has been sprayed, including all the hallways. We killed everything on site, so trust me, there's no bed bugs anymore. But yeah, this. So the way that with Wyndham, with the renovations we're doing, a lot of the renovations were actually required by the franchise. So whenever you buy when you buy a hotel franchise, it instigates what is called a property improvement plan. So Wyndham sends a rep out, inspects the property, and gives us a list of things that we need to improve on the property in order to maintain with Wyndham standards. And so they asked us to do $500,000 worth of renovations to the property to update it to make it Wyndham approved updates. Which honestly, like we needed, the property needed a refresh anyway. There you go. That's kind of the rooms, which it's a really nice photo, but the property is kind of aging a little bit. It was made in 1976. So like it's not super old, but it's getting up there where it does need a refresh. And so our $500,000 includes all new carpet, repaint, all new headboards, a lighting package, all new case goods, which is hotelese for furniture, as well as all new carpet in all the hallways as well.
For your lighting, are you able to get some grants if you can learn everything that way?
So they have, I wish I brought the PIP report with me. So they have literally, it's a package that tells us which exact products to use. And the lighting package is like lamps. It's not overheads. So, yeah, so like if we were able to do like,
Common element.
yeah,
Usually there's a pretty big incentive on it.
yeah. Well, and that's definitely something we could work in. Maybe if like we get all LED bulbs or something like that, but it's all like literally like the lamps package is what we're replacing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not like the overheads or anything like that we're replacing. What's up? Yeah, so yeah, they're not having us replace any of the stuff above. It's literally a lamp package, which.
Is there a fee they charge for purchase? Is there any like transfer fee for to be approved by the franchise or anything to that extent?
So is there a transfer fee to be approved?
Or like approval for
Yeah. So they essentially gave us this kit, which tells us like what color of carpet, what model number of lighting fixture to buy. We have to get things that are really specific to it. Now they have a handful of like approved vendors that they recommend us working with, but we don't have to work with them. But after we renovate the property, the American comes in and they inspect it to make sure it's up to their standards. So one of the things, if we break down, so I have line of credit on there. Part of that is actually they give us something called key money, which is essentially a renovation loan that they give us. It's not a whole lot. It's like $2,000 a unit, so it's like $160K that we get from them to help us renovate the property. But the silly thing with it is it's not like a normal renovation loan where you do the work, you submit an invoice, they pay it. It is you do all of the work, finish all of the work, and then they reimburse you for it once they have you approved. So it's like, thanks, I guess, for like money after the fact, but so they kind of they try to incentivize you to stay up to American standards, and because you can always threaten of like, well, I'm going to go to a different flag. I hear Quality Inn has a good incentive structure or something like that, and so that's some of the stuff you can really bargain with, especially if you're looking to change flags. Obviously, they know it's a hassle on our part that we're buying it already American. So in order for us to change it to a Comfort Inn, it's going to cost a lot more money. So they kind of beat you up a little bit. But if we were to like change flags or change franchises, at that point we would have the upper hand of being able to negotiate with multiple franchises, and they have to give us the sale discount. I've talked to like Comfort Suites or Comfort Brands, which is like Comfort Inn, Quality Inn. They also just bought the Radisson brands. And they will do like discounts on franchise fees even for like 2 to 5 years after converting in order to incentivize you to become a brand. So there's some of that negotiating there.
Is there any advantage of going independent?
I think if the location speaks for itself, you could probably go independent. So it's like if you were either a higher quality property, so say you have resort, or like you got a pool and a spa and things like that, you could probably kind of advertise yourself. There's also a thing called soft brand. So a soft brand would be like, the Broadway by Hilton. And so it's not Hilton, it is, you essentially kind of partner with them, so you pay a lot less of the franchise fee, but you still get to benefit from their systems. And it's kind of a cheaper way to do it, which is kind of nice. So I don't have to invent it from scratch. I can still buy it from them, the whole system from them. But then we can have our own name. We don't benefit from the marketing of it, so to speak. So there's a couple things, and I think for us, this is our first property. Now my partner Mike is awesome. So he has 25 years of experience in hospitality. He used to be the food and beverage director at Mystic Lake Casino, which he oversaw 1,000 employees there. He then worked at DoubleTree. Before Mystic Lake, he worked at Wyndham, and when he was working for DoubleTree, which was for Hilton, they also hired him, and they would send him to underperforming properties to get them performing again. Sweet. I want to partner with that guy. Definitely a big benefit of partnering with some of these people is that they know more than you, and I get to learn from my partner Mike, who is running our asset management division essentially, because we don't have to hire a property management company, so because we have Mike.
What percentage of that do you own?
I own 6.5%.
6.5.
So I like to tell people, in casual conversation, I bought $5.5 million worth of real estate in 6 months. but I own $500,000 of that. So the full transparency, the 12 unit, because I was able to put down a majority of the down payment, I own 40%. The 11 unit, I own 6.5%, and this I own 6.5%. Now, 6.5%, it's a syndication. So the way syndication typically is split is you have 70% of ownership going to the limited partners and 30% going to the general partners. But that 30% is the controlling share. So I own a little less than a quarter, I think it's 23% of the controlling shares of the property. And each of my partners owns about 25-ish% of it. And so that way, I do get a good chunk of it, and it's a $3.5 million property I would not have been able to buy unless I was able to give away a little slice of the pie.
So who put together the financial structure? Because this is really sophisticated.
I did.
So you put this whole thing together.
Yeah, so I've done a syndication before with the 11 unit. I did pay for a guru course to learn how to do the syndication thing, so I'm not advertising that, but that was a way to do it. Which allowed me to buy that first 12 unit and then the $5.5 million at this point. So that helped me learn a little bit of it. Do you need to do that? Not necessarily. I think, but the really important thing is understanding the numbers. So when and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but when I first started underwriting commercial real estate, it was in March of 2022. It was a year of underwriting properties before I actually closed on my first deal. And I had underwrote 146 different deals, all apartment buildings. Syndications is what I was trying to plan on doing before I actually was able to close on that first one. And so it's it took me this consistent effort where I went through essentially what I would call a dry spell between the second house I bought and the first apartment building, where it was a year I didn't buy anything. And I was like, oh man, going to MinRec and I seen all these cool people doing deals. I'm like, man, I'm not doing the thing, but it was consistent effort. So here, I can go into kind of the tools I use. I call this the way I look at deals. You can look at these apartment buildings and the sophisticated structures and stuff like that and be really, really, daunted by it. But the way I look at it is I break it down into parts, and I look at the 3 parts of every single deal. So it comes down to the deal, the money, the hustle, or the work of doing it. Now, if you want to break it down further, you can talk about the money for the net worth. Because you need the cash, but if you do buy an apartment building, you need net worth to qualify for the loan. You talk about the hustle, also talk about the knowledge, the know-how, because you don't want to go go get a bunch of investor money and then ruin the whole deal, and then you run into the ground and no one ever wants to work with you again. So there's some other components to it, but I really look at it like this. Because the 12 unit, I found the deal, I brought some of the money, and I partnered with someone else for the other half of the money and to do the work, the general contractor partner. The 11 unit, I had a partner find the deal for me, and he does some property management. I raised half the money for it, and I got a little slice of it. And so and then the last deal is that none of us had bought a hotel before, but partner Mike, he had the management experience, he had the hustle of the know-how of doing the thing. My partner Tom and Stephanie, they had the net worth, so that we could qualify for the loan because they had $3 million worth of mobile home parks. And then they also had earnest money, so they were able to put down $100,000 of earnest money that they got refunded once we closed on the property. And then I was able to raise the money, and then also I put together the syndication structure. I'm the point of contact of all the investors whenever they have any questions. I was kind of the closer as well, so my partners helped raise a lot of the money as well. They have personal connections they brought in. And then I would sit down in front of someone who wanted to invest $250,000, and they started asking me questions about syndication structures, and I had to sit there and answer every single one of them. And so that took a year of underwriting and reading and educating yourself. Because this is the parts of doing the deal, but then there's the doing. So I see it as you start with the education, because if you don't know how to do it, you're going to fail. So you get the education to get the direction, and you have the focused effort of consistently doing it, even though after a year of underwriting, you still don't have any deals. That's embarrassing at a point. But everything goes through a period of time where it sucks. And then you get to do the networking the whole time, because you can meet people and connect with people who do the deal as well. That's me as I was underwriting 146 different deals before I even close on one.
So,
I-
like when you're underwriting those things, always making an offer.
So I didn't put in 146 offers. I did 146 spreadsheets, and I'd probably put one every 10. I would do an offer. So call it 14 or 40 offers or something like that. This is the suck scale. You know, when you learn about something, hey, I learned house flipping makes me money, and you get super excited. You end up at the top, and then over time, as you learn more about it and you start doing it, you realize it kind of sucks. And your competency hasn't built up to the point where you actually succeed yet. And so you have this period of time where you're at the bottom of the suck scale, and you need to power through it before you actually get the deal done, because it's actual work. You know, I joked about like it's passive income. Well, yeah, as I was at a property doing laundry, there's a period of time where it sucks before it gets good, and I think you need to understand that there will always be a period of suck. You power through it, you get it done, and so you get all these.